Bag alert, bag alert, bag alert, bag alert, bag alert, folks. That's right. I called it. I called it. No one else called it. I called it. I was the one that said on the last episode that guess what? There's a good chance we were going to have a bag alert and something was going to happen. And just when I was editing, just when I was getting ready to put out this episode this morning, guess what happens? CeeDee Lamb gets paid. Called it. Greatest football podcast in the world. That's all I got to say. All right. But we have to get into all of these things. Okay. CeeDee Lamb gets paid, of course. We do have to ask, because we always have to with any time we have a bag alert, does this affect Jamar Chase and Brandon Aiyuk's situation? If it does, cool. If it doesn't, don't really care about it. Malik Willis finally gets a fresh start, a new opportunity. I'm so happy for him to get it, as well as the Texans and the Broncos are sellers. We got a lot to talk about, folks. A lot to talk about. We are one episode away from 30 episodes. One episode away from 30 episodes. I don't know if you guys realize this, but that is a major milestone. Major milestone. Well, guess what? We have all of this to talk about and more on the 29th episode of the Football Junkies podcast. I'm your host, Bagrodamus, two-time Bagrodamus, okay? I am your chief, head of the table, chief bag meteorologist, okay? I am your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but my predictions have come to pass and they will continue to come to pass because I am Bagrodamus. But most importantly, the most important title, I am your host, Kale. You already know what I'm getting ready to say. Let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into everything, all right? We're not going to stall. We are not going to waste any more time, okay? Let's get into everything. We're going to try to keep this episode as short, sweet, and to the point, okay? That is the goal in this episode and future episodes, okay? Because we've been putting out a lot of long episodes lately, and we just want to try to bring things back just a little bit. But hey, you know, when you have a lot of things happening, you know, you got to talk about it because why? We are the Football Junkies podcast. We are the hub. We are the place to go with all things related to football. Not to mention college football also starts this week. So we also have to talk about that as well. Man, oh man, this is going to be busy. All right, let's get into it. So, CeeDee Lamb, receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, inked a 4-year, $136 mega deal. Okay, he gets a $38 million signing bonus, $100 million in total guarantees, and he will be making $34 million a year. Okay, now let's go over just a few notes and whatnot. So, this is the largest signing bonus for a receiver, $38 million, and he is second behind Justin Jefferson in wide receiver guarantees at $100 million. Now, when we look at his stats, you know, for last season, he had 135 receptions, 1,749 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he averaged 13 yards a play according to ESPN. ESPN. It's the coffee. It's definitely the coffee. Now, more notes, right? Before we get into everything that we need to get into, he's had 3 1,000-yard seasons straight, 2021, 2022, and 2023. He was the most productive receiver against man coverage with 70 targets for 49 receptions and 794 yards. That is 132 more yards than any receiver in the league, okay? Not to mention, he gained 894 yards from the slot and 829 yards when lined up outside, according to NFL Pro. So when we look at it here, The Cowboys were definitely in a situation where they definitely needed to pay CeeDee Lamb, and they realized that because there is no other receiver that is as productive as CeeDee Lamb, right? And when you're talking about somebody who has that inside outside versatility and the way that they use CeeDee Lamb, you better pay him. You better pay him because you don't have anybody else that can do the things that he do. It'll be different if they still had Michael Gallup and they still had Amari Cooper and company. Then it's it opens up to a different conversation. But when it's literally just CeeDee Lamb, you have to pay him. You have to. This is the price that you pay for having a superstar receiver. That this is the price. And you know what? That might actually be the title. See, come on, man. Best podcast in the world. Come on now. Now, when we go a little bit deeper in this, I've definitely looked at the stats, and shout out to Corey, one of the members of the Not That Serious podcast. You guys can find them on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts as well. We definitely been going back and forth about this, and I didn't realize it until I actually looked at the stats. CeeDee Lamb has been lined up in the slot a lot. So essentially, what it looks like to me is they just resetted the slot receiver market. Wow, I don't whoa, I don't know how to feel about this, folks. This is a weird situation because granted, the times that I have seen Cowboys games, I've always seen CeeDee Lamb where lined up on the outside. I've never really seen him line up on the slot, but the stats don't lie. Stats do not lie. So maybe I'm going to have to look at more CeeDee Lamb footage. I probably will or something, but geez, I did not expect this. I did not expect this. I was befuddled. Again. Befuddled. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Now, with all of this and whatnot, I think it does open up, somewhat of a secondary conversation of, that everybody, immediately ask as soon as someone like a CeeDee Lamb gets paid the type of money that he gets paid, does this affect, other receivers that are looking for deals? And when you look at it, you have to look at it from a situational basis. You can't just group everybody into the same decision. When you look at it for Jamar Chase's case, I think it definitely ups up the ante for them because now Jamar Chase has more money that he could dictate and say, hey, listen, he's the second highest paid. I'm close to him. I may be better than him in certain aspects, on the field, but he got close. I'm trying to get as close as I can to him, or at least try to get in the middle between him and Justin Jefferson, one of the two. So I mean, in that type of situation, it's definitely going to have major ramifications for Jamar Chase moving forward because if Jamar Chase has a better season than CeeDee Lamb, and his stats are like literally neck and neck with Justin Jefferson, that opens up the floodgates. Okay, that changes everything. That means that whatever agreements that they had in place are basically scrapped at that point, and you're basically starting from from step one and trying to do the whole process all over again. Now, when you look at the free agent receiver market, there's going to be a lot of notable names that are going to be available, such as Deontay Johnson, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, and company. So you have that mixed with T. Higgins, Hollywood Brown, Odell Beckham Jr. and whatnot. So it's a good thing for the receiver market, but it's also a bad thing because now you're going to have players who, if they have better seasons than what they're supposed to have, no, let me rephrase it. If they have like a crazy season, statistically speaking, that could jack up the price even more for receivers. And granted, we have seen now that the league has accepted the receiver market now and values them more simply because you're seeing more people getting paid as a receiver. I could probably make a strong case that this offseason alone, this has probably been the most, not only friction, but the most well, no, not bag alerts. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. This is probably the one off season where I have seen multiple receivers get paid. You know, 30, 35, almost close to $40 million. I would not be surprised. And this is a Bag Road Dominance prediction. You're hearing it here first on the Football Junkies podcast. I would not be surprised if somebody cresses the $40 million mark within the next 3 years. I would not be surprised. You heard it here first. Simply because, receivers now are valued because not only of the skill set that they bring, but like how much influence they also have on an offense. Like we're seeing it now that in order for a team to be successful, they have to have a number one receiver. They have to have, an elite quarterback. They have to have, an elite pass rusher, an elite offensive lineman and whatnot. So when you have that mixed with, college football is basically a receiver factory, and you're basically getting, NFL caliber receivers, multiple NFL caliber receivers every draft, regardless if it's an offensive draft or defensive draft, the prices is going to continue to go up, right? And that's not even counting when people like Marvin Harrison Jr., becomes available to start doing contracts and whatnot. It's only going to continue to go up. It really is. So, congratulations to CeeDee Lamb. Now, moving on to Malik Willis. Okay, so former Titans quarterback Malik Willis was traded yesterday to the Packers. So the Packers, of course, received Malik Willis, and the Titans are receiving a 2025 7th round pick. Now, when we look at it, this was definitely a move that was definitely needed simply because Malik Willis really didn't have a chance, when being drafted to the Titans, right? Instantly, they started to favor, Will Levis and really started to give him a chance. And everybody knew that Malik Willis coming out of Liberty that year, he was a raw prospect. He was. He still had a lot of things that he had to work on. He had to work on his mechanics, had to work on play calling, had to work on his execution, all those different types of things. But the skill set is there. He just had to work on the basics and whatnot. So, the Titans are going through a lot of change and a lot of, turnover from the last regime till now, right? And so this is, expected when you do have a new GM. They're going to clean house. They're going to get rid of a lot of the older, a lot of the players that, they feel like, should probably go somewhere else and probably won't be on this team. They're going to get rid of them. And this is, and this is what happens. So I think him going to the Packers is probably a great situation. You're on a young team. You get to sit behind Jordan Love, and you probably get to get coached by someone like Matt LaFleur. So all in all, I think it's a great situation for him. It's nothing where it's like, oh, he was trash, he was this, that, and the other. No, look at it. Will Levis showed a lot of upside, during this past season, and they got Mace Rudolph. So you have those two quarterbacks right there, and Malik Willis is basically ass out. That's just what it is. That is what happens when it comes to football. This is the side of football that not a lot of people talk about, but this is what happens. But even then, it gives him a chance to possibly maybe start in a game or two, if Jordan Love, for some apparent reason gets hurt or anything crazy like that. So it's definitely a good situation for him. Now, on to another topic that we need to talk about. Actually, no, is that going to be the final topic? Oh, wow, we are breezing through this thing. See, I'm telling you guys, we're keeping things light. We're keeping things in a good enough time frame for everybody to listen to. We're not trying to do this long and drawn out because I know we've been doing a lot of long and drawn out episodes lately. So I definitely want to just keep things fresh and keep things light. And at the same time, talk the things we need to talk about and whatnot and just keep pushing. Now, I will say this. While I am recording, a lot of things are happening, in the league because it is cut down and basically Teams have until 4, I think it is 4 o'clock this afternoon to cut their rosters down. So you have people like Terrace Marshall Jr. that got cut, Desmond Ritter, James Pierre, C.J. Beathard. You have Adrian Amos. You have, what's the dude's name? C.J. Henderson. He got cut. Who else? Who else? Allen Robinson, Miles Boykin, Caleb Farley. So you have a lot of movement that is happening as we speak right now, as I am recording this right now. A lot of things are happening, and a lot of it is because teams are making their roster cuts and whatnot. But I will say this. This is what I will say. What's one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times, some of these players they'll come back on the same team that they were cut from. They'll probably just join the practice squad or whatever. They'll probably just wait for another opportunity depending on where you are in your NFL career, right? For instance, like Allen Robinson, right? Allen Robinson is an 11-year veteran, right? So technically speaking, he could probably go and wait for another opportunity to arise, right? Compared to someone like a Miles Boykin, where you're mainly used for special teams, and you'll probably get some traction, but you probably won't get a whole lot of traction, right? And then you even have, former first round picks, Caleb Farley and CJ Henderson, who, they have not lived up to the expectations that a lot of people had for them. And, they just they just had to get cut, especially for Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley definitely was someone that I definitely was interested in, when he was coming out of Virginia Tech, but he just hasn't been able to do it. Now, a lot of that is because, I think he had a back injury one year, and then he has like asthma that's supposed to be like really bad, like just a whole bunch of stuff. And you know what? It happens. It does. Not every first rounder is going to have this successful career. It's not going to get, the big paycheck. But, this is the business side of football that not a lot of people talk about and not a lot of people like, because, it definitely, it's a lot. It definitely is a lot. And I talked about it, in the last episode. But, this is a time where, there's a lot of tension, because you don't know if you're going to get traded, if you're going to get cut, if you're going to be able to return to the practice squad and whatnot. And that takes a lot, especially when you have given your all in training camp, when you've given your all into the preseason, and you feel like you've done enough to be like, okay, I have a roster spot here. And, they'll come up to you and say, hey, we think you did a great job, but we don't think this is probably the best opportunity for you, and they cut you. And that's a tough thing to take, because now you have to figure out, what are you going to do moving forward? And, it's not like there's a robust of opportunities on these teams. It's very competitive. Outside of the star players and whatnot, the rest of the roster spots are very competitive. They are, here today, gone tomorrow type of situations. If you get hurt and the injury is significant, most likely they'll have your replacement already on a plane, ready to sign a 1-year deal. That's just the brutal side of it that not a lot of people talk about. And sometimes as fans, they try to turn it into a joke and whatnot, when it's like, no, this is people's livelihood we're talking about. This is, a lot of these players are the primary caretaker for not only themselves but for their families and whatnot. So a lot rides on this type of stuff. Now, on to the final topic. A lot, with everything that's going on and whatnot, cuts and trades and all those various different types of things, we do have to talk about two teams that have definitely started to become sellers, and that is the Broncos and the Texans. So apparently, a lot of teams have inquired with the Texans about receivers such as John Mechie and other receivers that may be at the bottom part of their receiver roster. So as well as the Broncos, teams are calling about Tim Patrick, because Tim Patrick actually looks very promising. This is probably the best that we've seen Tim Patrick since since his arrival into the league. Now, granted, the only problem with Tim Patrick, I think that makes me very wary about him, is because of his extensive injury history. Like, he literally had two season ending injuries back to back, right? And he's just been, I wouldn't say a glass house, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And in a league where, availability is the best ability, you have to stay somewhat healthy. And granted, in the preseason, he was looking phenomenal. He was making the catches, he was creating separation, he was doing all those different types of things. But it's like, bro, if you just stay healthy just one season, I guarantee you somebody will definitely give you a chance. But I do think someone like John Mechie, I think that's a very unique trade to go for, because one, he's still on his rookie deal, so you don't have to worry about, oh, is this going to be a large cap hit? Do we have to do a restructure? You don't have to worry about that. The trade for him is relatively easy to make, because you don't have to give up, a first round pick, a second round pick, or a third round pick. You could probably give them a conditional fifth that can turn into a fourth round pick for John Mechie. John Mechie is a deep threat who can, play in the slot, play on the outside, good route runner, and, someone who his goal is to score. That's who John Mechie is. And, John Mechie was talked about very highly, definitely when he was coming out of Alabama, and he was definitely someone that I definitely, really wanted, honestly. Like, I really wanted John Mechie. So, would I be surprised if either one of them gets traded? No, I wouldn't. Even Robert Woods. Robert Woods is even getting some traction as well, simply because he's a great blocking receiver. He's probably one of the best blocking receivers, right? So you have that on top of, he was on that Rams championship team. So teams may try to get that as well for that championship type of pedigree player and whatnot. So it's a lot of things that are happening. And, with this much movement, I would not be surprised if the trade deadline is just like this, or even worse. Anyway, not a good worse, not a bad worse. And the reason why I say that is because teams are trying to win now. Okay, you have teams like the Ravens, like the 49ers, who else? Like the Chiefs and company, like the Eagles, who are trying to win now. And if there is a player that they feel like that if they get that player, that they are going to be an instant impact, and that can probably take them to the next level, they are going to get them. They are going to move heaven and earth to get them. Now, the only problem is for teams like the 49ers, they're in the pressure is really mounted on them this year, because they don't have a whole lot of leverage. They don't have a whole lot of time with their situation, because they are going to be over, I think, $39 million over the cap next year. Not to mention, right? You have the holdout with both Brandon Aiyuk and Trent Williams, and on top of that, I keep on saying Brandon Aiyuk, and Brock Purdy is up for a deal next year. And, if the 49ers win it all this year, that's $60 million that's going to Brock Purdy, as I've said before episodes. So, this is the year that they have to win it. I don't think there is another 2 or 3 years where they can continue to roll with the roster that they have and, probably try to stay competitive. I just don't. I think they've been trying to mortgage a championship for the past few years and have been unsuccessful. A lot of that has been because of their own fault when it comes to coaching and, various different things. But the fact of the matter is, folks, it's going to be active. This is my prediction. This is my prediction. I didn't hear this from anybody else. I don't have any sources or anything, but this is my prediction. I do believe this is going to go down in history as one of the most active trade deadlines this year. Multiple top-notch players are going to get moved. They are going to be put in better situations. You have people like J.C. Horn, Marshawn Lattimore, that's not getting talked about a whole lot, Devontae Adams, Hassan Reddick and company, who are going to want out of their situation and who are going to want to be put in better situations. So you have that mixed with, teams are more likely to give up high draft compensation just so they can be able to, to sweeten up the deal, of course. If it means that they can win the championship, okay, they'll throw away a first round pick. They won't think twice about it. That's just the mentality that GMs are having now. You're seeing more GMs who have become somewhat gunslingers when it comes to trades, who are pulling the trigger, not thinking twice about it, who are, not really thinking about the repercussions and whatnot, not trying to be reserved. They are trying to assemble the best team that they possibly can. And it shows. So I'm gonna end this episode right here. If you guys like what you're listening, please like, share, subscribe, leave a 5-star review wherever you guys listen, and get your daily football junkies fix. You can listen to us on RSS feed, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Shout out to every single digital streaming platform that we are able to give and feed the masses of the Football Junkies podcast. Now, for my YouTube people, like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, leave a comment down below. Okay, cool. Now, on to my TikTok people. Do the same thing, okay? Except for the subscribe thing, because I don't think there is a subscribe for TikTok. For my Instagram people, like it, leave a comment, put it on your story, do something with it, okay? Now, you can follow us on YouTube, football_junkies pod. Again, that's football_junkies pod. You can follow us on Instagram, football_junkies pod. Again, that's football_junkies pod. Follow us on TikTok, football_junkies pod. Again, that's football_junkies pod. Junkies pod is not what? It is not spaced. It is all together. And as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. Best believe there's going to be more news. There's going to be more friction within the coming hours, probably within the next, few days or whatnot. I would not be surprised if, some more, bombshells drop within the next 48 to 72 hours. I would not be surprised, but when it happens, we will be the first to talk about it, discuss it, and give our opinions about it. So I will say later for now, okay, because there's still going to be some things that are going to be happening. I'm telling you, Bad Rodamus, come on now. Bad Rodamus keeps on saying it now. The only thing that hasn't been coming to fruition is Brandon Aiyuk. Hopefully, maybe it happens while I'm editing. Who knows? But as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. We are almost at 30 episodes, and I am so excited, and I appreciate you guys so much. Peace and love. I'm out.